let's consider this particular system. 4y plus 7x equals 6. I'll call that equation 1. 5x minus 2y equals 14. I'll call that equation 2. So what I want to do is I want to get both equations in y equals mx plus b form. That way I can compare their slopes and y-intercepts. So let's consider the first equation. 4y plus 7x equals 6. I want to get y by itself on the left-hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 7x from the left-hand side. But if I subtract 7x from the left-hand side, then I must also subtract 7x from the right-hand side. 7x minus 7x is going to be 0. So on the left-hand side, I'll have just 4y. On the right-hand side, I'm going to rearrange this 6 minus 7x, and I'm going to write it as negative 7x plus 6. 4y on the left-hand side means 4 times y. So to get y by itself, I'm going to divide the left-hand side by 4. But because I divide the left-hand side by 4, I must divide both pieces on the right-hand side by 4 as well. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'll have 1 times y, which is just y on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I've got negative 7x divided by 4, so that's just going to be negative 7 over 4x. And I've got plus 6 over 4. Now that 6 over 4 can reduce. 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So I end up with y equals negative 7 over 4x plus 3 over 2. Let's consider the second equation. 5x minus 2y equals 14. I want to get y by itself on the left-hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 5x from the left-hand side. But because I subtract 5x from the left-hand side, I must also subtract 5x from the right-hand side. 5x minus 5x is going to be 0, so I'm going to have 0 minus 2y on the left-hand side. And I'm going to rearrange this piece on the right. Instead of writing 14 minus 5x, I'm going to write that as negative 5x plus 14. 0 minus 2y on the left is just negative 2y, and on the right I've got negative 5x plus 14. That negative 2y means negative 2 times y. So to get y by itself, I've got to divide the left-hand side by negative 2. But because I divide the left-hand side by negative 2, I must also divide both pieces on the right-hand side by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, and 1 times y is going to leave me with y on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, this piece, negative 5x over negative 2, becomes 5 over 2x. In other words, a negative divided by negative gives me a positive. 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. But remember, we have a plus here. So we've got plus a negative 7. And that's minus 7. So I end up with y equals 5 over 2x minus 7. So let's compare the slopes. The slope of the first equation is negative 7 over 4. The slope of the second equation is 5 over 2. So right away we know that these two equations have different slopes. Because they have different slopes, we know they intersect at exactly one point. So there's going to be one solution to this system.